Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL Podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly.
Well, welcome back to the DCL Podcast, your podcast to cruise a little smarter. I'm your host, Lake, and I am flying solo for this one, but that is okay. We have an exciting episode and a very maritime sailing. Not only that, one of the first very maritime sailings. And to talk about that, we would like to welcome back Virgil to the show. Virgil, how are you today?
I'm doing so well. I'm really happy to be back. Thanks for having me, Lake.
Absolutely. I was very excited when you emailed us that you had just gotten off this sailing. And this is kind of exciting too, because you left us on a bit of a cliffhanger on the last one, because in the last one you did an adult only sailing and you said you wish you had brought your kids. And this time we get to fulfill that wish.
We did, and it was so much fun seeing it again, but through their eyes, and we were really interested to see what they would like and maybe the things that they wouldn't care as much about. But honestly, having now done it twice, I think some of the critiques of the wish may be fair, but some of it, especially taking on kids who 2 out of 3 of them had never really functionally been on one. Our kid had been on one when he was like 9 months old, and our daughter had never been on one. When you remove the comparison to other ships, they could not have had more fun. It was incredible. And it was amazing to see how little the things that other people have called out as being like issues with the Wish were just not. I don't know that my kids ever thought to themselves, you know what this ship needs is midship elevators. Like, they just never, that would have never crossed their mind. But we really loved getting to do it with them. So it was a lot of fun.
Awesome. I am excited to get into this one. Well, we know why you booked this one if you listened to our last episode with Virgil. So we will go ahead and jump into, why don't you talk a little bit about getting to the port, or getting to Florida, I should say, and how your kids found out about this sailing?
Sure. So we flew from our home here in the Dallas area into Orlando the day before embarkation, because we aren't people who like white knuckling things, and first rule of cruising is thou shalt not arrive on embarkation day. So we came to Florida on Sunday, and we actually got there pretty early in the morning. So we rented a car and went down to Disney property, because my 16-year-old, one of the functions of this cruise was to celebrate her birthday. So we wanted to take her to Cake Bake Shop. And I will just tell you, having done that, you can add soundly in the category of what in the world are those people thinking? It is quite the experience. It's very, very beautiful. You know, it's definitely a once in a lifetime. Check that off the list. But 3 pieces of cake, just under $100. And as you and I were talking about a little bit earlier, that's a lot of Publix cake for just under $100. And I think the Publix cake probably would have been much more enjoyable, but the experience obviously would not have been nearly as enjoyable. We have a cast member friend of ours who's actually one of my daughter's close friends. She's there on the college program. So she met us. We got to feed her lunch and hang out with her. And it was really great seeing her. And so after we did that, we went back up to the Hyatt in Orlando at the airport, the Hyatt Regency at MCO where we're staying. And we DoorDashed some Cuban food for dinner and turned it in relatively early, because our kids just thought Monday morning we were going to drive to the beach. They thought that we were just beach hopping through Florida for the week, and they had no idea. All of the fish extender stuff, all of the matching shirts, all of the Very Merry decor we had bought for the stateroom door, all that had been strategically hidden, and they had no idea what we were doing until Monday morning when we woke up. We set an alarm and kind of dragged them out of bed at around 7:15, 7:20, and then had a character call at 7:30 where Mickey and Minnie called to say what was actually going on. And that's how they found out, as I answered the phone and put it on speaker, and they got to hear Mickey and Minnie say how excited they were. The downside of this, for any parents who are considering doing this, I would not have chosen the Mickey and Minnie, because you have options. I would have either chose Mickey or Goofy, because I've heard those calls on different videos or whatever. The Mickey and Minnie call is cute, but they don't actually say, we're excited you're joining us on a Disney cruise. It's very vague. They're just like, we're really excited to see you. So when we got off the call, my daughter thought we were going to Disney World. So we had to explain to them, no, we're actually going to go on the Wish. And at that point, she lost it. She was thrilled, and we gave them our matching shirts and got stuff loaded up and ready to get to the port.
You booked that through the app, right?
You do. Yeah, you can go through the app, or I think I've seen it since playing around because we have our next one booked and I was playing around with it the other day, but I think you can do it through the website as well, but I did it through the app.
Awesome. Well, how did we get to Port Canaveral?
Okay, so this is that moment where I hate saying this because I don't want it to become overly popular because that makes it harder for those of us who kind of know how great it is. It makes it harder for us to book it. I cannot say enough. If we ever cruise out of Port Canaveral again, we're staying at the Hyatt Regency Orlando. We booked Disney transportation, which is the whole purpose for staying at the Hyatt Regency is we're there and you floor. Because it's for those who are not familiar, if you have been to the Orlando airport, when you get off the fake monorail after the Bunny Dyer recording and you walk into there, you look up and all around you, you see these, what looks like a hotel room. That's the Hyatt. It's literally in the main building of Orlando. So of the airport rather. So then you take an escalator up into the fourth floor, which is essentially their lobby. So you in the morning you go down there and you meet over by their little restaurant and they do the full check-in process except for security in the airport or in the hotel rather. So we went down there. We're gold castaway status, so we technically would have had to wait a little bit longer, but we were there and they had already brought through all the concierge people. So at like 8:15, we went through. I was there by myself, but because they were doing the actual check-in, they said, hey, your whole party has to be here. So I called up to the room. My wife brought the kids down and we went through and said, hey, here's all of our stuff. They checked passports. They checked all the documentation. They gave us little cards with Mickey, a little Mickey Mouse. And that was the first bus out. They do it by castaway status. So it was like Pearl, then Concierge, then Gold, and then Silver, and then first time cruisers. And they assign you a bus with a character tag based on the order of check-in. So we were out on bus number 1. So we got checked in. We sat down for a few minutes and then we talked about it briefly, but we were a little delayed getting out of there because we eventually talked to the cast members. They said that they were a little delayed at port because they were getting everything decorated for Christmas because it was the first Very Merry Sailing of the season. So we were a little delayed getting out, but we finally did. They loaded. So there was a wedding party that was at the Hyatt that was also on our cruise. They had a wedding, but their whole party was staying at the Hyatt. Pearl went first and then they loaded them. They took the wedding party separately and then they went to Platinum and then Gold. But we all got on. We were on bus number 1, straight down the escalator, straight onto the bus, out we went, and we were at the port within 45 minutes or so. So I think we finally loaded around 8:45 and by 9:45, excuse me, and by 10:15 or 10:20 we were already in the terminal rather.
And you mentioned they were already delayed. Your embarkation was delayed as well once you got there, right?
So we didn't know that yet. We found that out in the process because when we finally got there, when you come up inside, everything is decorated for Christmas inside the terminal. And so you come up the escalator and there's the Mickey hands with the decorations hanging from them and the beautiful Christmas tree and there's Christmas music playing and the terminal was 100% ready. But when we got ready we took our photos, our pre-embarkation photos, and we were all just kind of milling around and we were waiting to go on and we're like, wow, this is taking a long time. And so the family of the day got selected. They got pulled and sat down off the side. All the concierge guests had been walked out from inside the concierge lounge there. And it was like, no one was real sure what we were waiting on. But finally, again, we overheard someone in the wedding party actually that were standing kind of right behind us that had inquired and said, yeah, they're finishing up some decorations before we load. So we embarked a little bit later than we thought we would have. But honestly, at some point I looked at my wife when we were all starting to feel a little frustrated with still standing there because the terminal filled completely. Like the terminal was packed because now all these other buses are arriving, private transfers are arriving, Ubers, Lyfts, people are driving themselves. And that top level had gotten completely full all the way from the little stanchion where you go through the Mickey head looking back towards the escalator. It was just people all the way. But we were getting frustrated. I looked at my wife and said, honestly, if we were the last person in this terminal right now to get on, it would still be the earliest we've ever boarded a cruise because we were there so early. Oh, as we were walking in off the bus, there was a cast member standing there handing out these little tickets that said, hey, you're now boarding group 1. When we checked in, we were boarding group 9. When we selected the Hyatt as our pre-night stay, we ended up with boarding group 3. But then we got there so early that they ended up bumping us to boarding group 1. So we knew as soon as they start letting people on, we're going to get on. So, and eventually they did, and off we went.
About what time did you end up boarding?
I'm taking pictures inside the terminal by 10:47. The video of our announcement was at, wow, that's way later than I thought it was, 12:20.
Okay. Waited like an hour and 40 minutes before you could finally get on. Yeah.
But weirdly, it didn't feel that. I'm obviously photos don't lie. I just looked at the timestamp. It didn't feel like an hour and 40 minutes, but it ended up being about an hour and 40 minutes. And then when they finally say, welcome the family of the day, Pearl and concierge board, and then, they start boarding group one. Oh, I'm sorry, the wedding party went, and then they started taking boarding group one. As we're going, it was very uncharacteristic. I think in our last recording, I said, man, Port Canaveral is a well-oiled machine. This felt a little uncharacteristically disorganized because they didn't say, okay, if you have boarding group one, come queue up here. And then everybody else, go take pictures or whatever. When we board, this is where you board. So there were two separate lines that formed of people with boarding group one. And then when they said, may I have your attention, please, boarding group one, as soon as they started the announcement, both lines started moving forward. And it was like two lines of people converged on the same entrance at the same time. And it was like, oh, this is not going to be good. But thankfully, everybody was still relatively cheerful and just, oh, you go ahead. And we all kind of, meshed together and then went back and forth in the queue thing. And we got on. It was fine. But then when you get across the gangway, they had it split to where you had to either go right, kind of as you come onto the ship, you had to veer off sort of like you're going to the gift shop, or left like you're veering off towards 1923. You weren't able to just walk straight into the Grand Hall, because they had it blocked off because they were still putting up the Christmas tree. Even when they delayed it and they let everybody on, they weren't 100% ready. Like they were, the red and white scarves that the cast members wear over their costumes, they were still handing those out as we were boarding. It felt like they had gotten to a point where like, okay, we're as good as we're going to get. Now we need to let them come on. But they were very much still decorating when we boarded the ship.
Did they still do the announcement then when you got on?
They did, but even for the Wish, it felt more low key than the last time. It was, ladies and gentlemen, welcome the Richardson family. And then we kind of walked through, ladies and gentlemen, welcome the Thomas family. Ladies and gentlemen, like it was stacked up. To their credit, though, I think they were just trying to get people boarded at that point.
Well, we get on the Wish, and it is your kid's first time. What was their first impression?
My 10 and 6-year-old had that moment that you just really hope that they have. Right. It's like as parents, you spend hours and hours and hours keeping all of this stuff secret. Again, all of the matching shirts and fish extenders and room decoration, all the stuff that you've got hidden away in a special suitcase that's in a closet in your master bedroom where the kids never go so they don't stumble on it. You spend all this time trying to prepare the surprise for them. And then you finally get there and watching them just stand there looking around completely bewildered by what their experience, it made everything up to that point worth it. It was the most beautiful moment as a parent to watch my 6 and 9-year-old just completely kind of lose themselves in wonder for a minute. It's equivalent to when you come around the statue and make that right onto Main Street, USA in the Magic Kingdom, and they see the castle all the way down Main Street and it's framed. And it's that moment that I believe, in my opinion, is much different on the Wish than it would be on any of the other ships. The atrium on the first floor on the Legacy ships is beautiful, but it's just not, it cannot compare to that moment where everything 3 stories of spiraling staircases and princesses up top, and they're giving them a wishing wand, and now there's a wishing ceremony, and it's just not comparable to the other 4. It's, in my opinion, a much better boarding experience, but they were blown away. We stood there for a minute and did the first wish ceremony, and then we went into frenetic scramble mode trying to get the first day logistical stops checked off before too many more people got on board.
Well, where did we head after embarkation then?
So what we didn't want to do is say, okay, wasn't that cool? Great, now let's go, and start dragging them, kind of take them out of the moment. But we did have things that we needed to get accomplished. So we, as gently as we could, kind of started bringing them to places we needed to go. So dining changes was in Triton this time instead of at Luna. So Lake, I don't know what the secret sauce is, but this is now 2 sailings on the Wish, and both times we've been unable to get Hollow Brunch. So I was like refreshing the app over and over and over again leading up to it, never saw any availability for either brunch. But we went straight to Triton. We were the second people through the door, and they still weren't able to get us into brunch, but they waitlisted us. We were number 2 or 3 on the wait list, and we didn't get called. Now, they did send us a message in the app that said, hey, we're not able to get you Apollo brunch, but we could get you Enchanté brunch, rather. And no, thank you. No, we've already done Enchanté on our first sailing, and both agreed this was an amazing, wonderful experience that we probably aren't in a rush to do again. So we chose not to do that, but we did dining reservations. Then we went to guest relations to try to get my daughter the Royal Gathering, because that was another thing that we never even saw it pop up. Not only could we never book it, but we never even saw it be available. So we got her that, and we were able to get her into that on Thursday, which was great. Oh, and then I wanted to go to Hooks, Barbary, to get a service at Hooks. So we went over there and were able to get an appointment for that day. They were offering a package thing similar to what they do in Senses, where if you come today, we'll give you all this and take off that and whatever. But we were able to book myself a haircut, beard trim, and amazing experience of all kinds of stuff that I'm unfamiliar with, but was really nice to experience. And then my 10-year-old was able to get a haircut while I was doing all that. So we booked that, and then we walked around and just explored the ship until it was time to eat. We finally got to that point where like, hey, let's go eat. So we went and we did Festival of Foods for our first lunch. Kind of showed the kids, hey, this is where everything is. You know, you can go here, there, Tex-Mex, barbecue, whatever. And they were like, wait, we can just go eat? We're like, yeah, what do you want? They're like, wait, okay. So I need you need to come with me. I was like, no, it's split it right there. You can go get it. He's like, well, how am I going to pay? I'm like, dude, we already paid. You're on the cruise. If you see something you want to eat it. Like, get it, dude. This is your world. We're just here to keep you safe, right? So they went and they got what they wanted. We sat down and had lunch. Very weirdly, it just happened to be the table that was available. We had the exact same table my wife and I did on our first meal on our cruise in March, which was kind of weird. But we ate, and then we did the ceremonial first ice cream at Soft Serve. So we had our ice cream, and by then it was time to split, and me and my kid went down to do our Hooks Barbary stuff while my wife and the girls went to try to get things squared away at Untangled because they had to move some stuff around there. So they went and did that while we went to Hooks.
Before we talk about Hooks, which I would like to talk about just a minute because we don't hit on that too often. I've also done an experience in there. You are not alone in the Palo brunch debacle. We are hearing more and more. We just did a show today where we were talking about how Pearl members couldn't get Palo brunch on some of these shorter cruises because it's so scarce, and there's so many platinum and pearls and concierges who also get that $65 or $60 credit towards it, that it is like impossible on some of these sailings where it's only offered a day or two to even get in there now.
Honestly, I don't know what the solution is with that then, late, because really, the obvious thing would be, well, there's an excess of demand and there's not enough supply, so just offer it again. But if they offered it again, really the only other time they could offer it would be on Castaway Day, and I'm not missing Castaway for Palo brunch. So maybe some people would, especially on a really bad weather day. But we had great weather for the most part on Castaway. I don't think I would have given up several hours of my Castaway day to have brunch at Palo. So I don't know what they can do to fix that. That's wild that even Pearl members can't get it. I guess it's just, that's unfortunate. I thought it was just us, that maybe we weren't doing something correctly, but even getting on the wait list, I think the cast member that helped us, I think he said we were second or third on the wait list, and we didn't get called. Now he did say, do you want us to put you on the wait list for Nassau as well? That'll double your chances of getting in. And we said no, because we had something booked in Nassau and we weren't going to miss that. So we ended up saying no. And maybe if we would have said yes, we would have gotten called, but we didn't. And we didn't get called for the sea day.
Well, let's circle back to something more fun then and talk about Hooks Barbary.
Man, Hooks is awesome. We went, again, it had only been 6 months since we were on board. So we went in there. I was the first one in with my son. Like literally I walked in as the cast member was unlocking the door. We said, hey, I'd like to come get a haircut and a beard trim. My son would like to get a haircut. They're like, yeah, how about 2:00 today? And I'm like, heck yes, let's do it. But the guy that my wife and I had sat with for a couple hours on our cruise, which, while saying that out loud, the difference in being there just with your spouse or your partner versus being there with your family and your kids is completely different, because the idea of sitting anywhere at an adult venue for 2 hours is kind of mind-blowing. We did not do that at all on this voyage. But anyway, the guy Carlos is the guy that was making the drinks at their little speakeasy. He's also a barista in Enchanted Sword during the day. He was in there and we recognized him. He recognized us. We're like, oh my God, Carlos, how you doing? But we actually said, yeah, I'm so glad you're here. We're going to come get another old fashioned, because the old fashioned, if you are a whiskey fan, you have got to go to Hooks. when the speakeasy is open, because they have some whiskeys in there that are beyond rare, but like they could make you a several $1,000 old fashioned if you wanted them to. We did not elect for that option. We would just book another cruise for that amount of money. But we saw him. We got everything booked. I came back down at 2. My son got his hair cut. They did the hot towel and the whole thing for him, which he thought was just the coolest. And I got their signature service, which I don't remember the name of it, but it was a haircut, beard trim, facial, some kind of exfoliation thing. They wrapped my head in towels multiple times, put some little eye patches things on both my eyes for the swelling in my eyes that I didn't even know I had. I mean, it was awesome. Can't recommend it enough. But on embarkation day, if you book their signature service, the haircut is included. So that ends up being about, depending on what kind of haircut you get, I guess, somewhere between $30 and $60 break based on whatever your haircut would have cost. So we did that. That was awesome. And then we told Carlos, I told Carlos I was leaving, hey, we're coming back to that old fashioned. Spoiler alert, we did not, but we did see him at the cafes throughout the ship a couple times. So
Hook's Barbery is like one of the most relaxing like haircut experiences you can ever have. My only qualm with it is I wish they did straight razor service.
Yes.
I do feel like for the price, it feels a little bit tacky to be shaved with like a disposable razor.
I agree. I made notes, throughout the voyage, knowing that we were going to talk, just so I didn't forget stuff. But the one thing I did in my notes, I put glad no straight razor, because I don't know that I'd want someone going near the jugular when the
rocky
ship is listing back and forth. That might be a bridge too far, but we were still in port when I had my service, so it wouldn't have necessarily mattered. But I agree with you. If you're going to charge that kind of price, it would be nice if it was at least an option while in port. I don't know if that's something they could do or not, but yeah, there's a barbershop here that I go to that does the straight razor thing at the end, and that's definitely a nice touch, and that was not available here.
Yeah, otherwise, lovely experience.
Gotta go, man. I think next time I would hold off getting a haircut just to do it on embarkation day, because you don't want to look like a bum for your photos, but if they can get you in on embarkation day, that's definitely, I think, worth the wait.
Well, we relax and get sharp at Hook's Barbery. Where did we head after that?
By then it was 3, so it was time for the mandatory safety drill. I will add my voice to the chorus of people who says, come on, Disney Cruise Line, we don't need to still be doing this in person. I'm pretty sure they're the only major American cruise line that is still doing the drill in person, as opposed to taking pictures, with your phone or whatever, just high-fiving somebody at your leisure on day one. But I will say, that being said, we had Muster Station A, also known as the Walt Disney World Theater, or the Walt Disney Theater, excuse me. This was the first cruise that we've ever been on where we were not mustering in a cattle call on the outside promenade. It was like a completely different experience. We went in, we all sat down nicely and quietly in the nice, lovely air-conditioned theater. All the cast members were there. The announcement came up on the screen, which previously I didn't know there was an announcement on the screen because we had never been near a screen for the drill before. If I was torn between 2 locations on a ship for a stateroom, and it was the same exact stateroom, if everything else was equal, and I knew that one was mustering there and one was mustering out on deck 4, I would choose the one that would tip me over the edge. It was the coolest, easiest, most seamless in and out experience with a safety drill we've ever had, except for the one during COVID where you could just snap a photo with your phone. I apologize. I jumped ahead. We did go in our stateroom. We had 2 staterooms. So we were on deck 6. We had deluxe ocean view with veranda and a sort of adjacent inside stateroom across, like, around a corner. It was obviously the veranda staterooms are east to west orientation. Well, their inside stateroom where our kids were was north to south orientation. So you had to kind of go up and around the corner to get to this little alcove where their room was, which was very cool. It was super private. And my wife and I were like, man, we should do this. Like, if this is a way to save $1,000 or whatever on a voyage, this would be totally fine for the 2 of us. If it's do this or not get on the voyage, this would be perfect. But both the staterooms were ready at the same time. We had Nico as our stateroom attendant, was unbelievable. The guy kept up with 2 staterooms, was very engaging, was fun, loved chatting with our kids and high-fiving them and fist bumping them. Nico from Trinidad was awesome. We saw him kind of as we were getting settled. He said, if there's anything you need, let me know. And he meant it. So he was wonderful. When we got settled, we had bought a bottle of Cloud and Blue to do a little sail away toast. For those who are unfamiliar, it's essentially, I guess, apple cider, sparkling apple cider that's blue, that looks like a cloud when you pour it into a glass. And it was just a cool little thing to be able to sit with the kids on the veranda, and do a toast and say, here's to a great cruise, and then from there we went upstairs about 15 minutes, I think, before the party was supposed to start. And it was wall to wall people. Now in March, my wife and I showed up as the music for the sail away party was starting, and we were able to essentially get a really great location kind of diagonal from the stage. It was just people everywhere. I mean, it was wild how many people. When I went to guest relations at one point, I said, "How full are we?" There were close to 4,000 people on our sailing, which I think the capacity is 4,000. So it was packed. The sail away party was fun. I still think it's the best sail away party out of all the ships. My daughter was on my shoulders and we were bouncing up and down, having a good time. And the kids were really unbothered by the amount of people that were there. And really, that's all that mattered. So yeah, we did sail away party and it was great.
With the 2 staterooms, what was the sleeping arrangement like?
The joke that they tell you when you book the rooms is Mickey doesn't do bed checks. Every parent is different. And I would absolutely never be comfortable with going to like an on-property resort where me and my wife had a room and then my kids were like 8 or 10 rooms down the hall. On the ship, I probably would have felt comfortable with that simply because we had a 16-year-old with us as well. And so that kind of changes things up. But the way that we booked it was there has to be an adult in each room. So in the veranda stateroom, it was my wife and my 16-year-old. And then in the inside stateroom, it was myself, my 10 and my 6-year-old. But the way that it functionally worked is night 1, my 6-year-old wanted to be with me and mommy because she was just feeling a little overwhelmed by the day. So she slept in the room with us. And then every night after that, my wife and I had a room and the kids had a room because their room was literally, when you open our stateroom door, you're looking at the wall of their room. It's just right there. And if they needed anything, they could just walk over. But Nico, being as amazing as he was, made both the fold out beds in both rooms every night because we were never real sure whether my son or my daughter would want to sleep in our room, but they chose to be in their own room because it was cool to them to have their own stateroom on a cruise ship.
Awesome. So then moving into after the sail away party, were we early or late dining?
Late. We were late dining. We had initially waitlisted for early, but we chose not to. As we got closer to the voyage, my wife and I were talking because we're looking at, again, some of the Christmas activities. And we're like, man, it's going to feel wild going from Seize the Adventure to the tree lighting, or I'm sorry, going from dinner to Seize the Adventure to the tree lighting, like back to back to back to back to back. It felt like if we put it later, we would have more time to get to where we were going. So in an ironic twist, that means that when we went on our couples only cruise, we had early dining with all the kids. But when we were on the cruise with our kids, we had late dining, and there were far fewer kids in late dining than there were on our first voyage. That night, we went from the show, Seize the Adventure, to the Christmas tree lighting. And while we were there, the gift shops were opening. So we did that, the Christmas tree lighting, and then went right into the gift shop to get the merchandise, and then went down to dinner with a World of Marvel on our first night for our first dinner.
That is my favorite rotation, starting at Marvel, because you end with 1923 then.
That is correct. We did it backwards on the first cruise. We did 1923 and then, ended in Arendelle. That I wish if you could do choose your own adventure, I would say start with Marvel and then do 1923 twice and end in Arendelle, because doing Arendelle twice is just not what I would choose necessarily. But again, we were there for the kids, so we were just seeing everything through their eyes and enjoying it. And Pirate Night is kind of the same regardless of where you're sitting. So,
well, that sounds like that about wraps up day 1 for you then.
It does. The tree lighting was cool. It was great. And the one thing I will say in their favor for Disney is the tree lighting was the perfect amount of time. It was beautiful. Everything was off. The tree was obviously all the way up and all the garland was up by then. We came into the grand hall. We stood on the staircase that wraps right around the back of the tree. So you sing a few Christmas carols, the characters are there, and then they light the tree. And when the tree lit, it was like we could reach out and touch it. It was right in front of us, and the whole grand hall lights up. It was beautiful, but we were in and out of there, and I think it was about 15 minutes or so total for the whole thing. It was awesome. And then we got the kids into Kids Club for the first time and went upstairs and laid on our bed and stared at the ceiling after a very, very long whirlwind day, and then went downstairs and got them and put them in bed.
Yeah, embarkation day is exciting, but it can be a lot between the trying to get everything planned and booked that you weren't able to, the Kids Club check-ins, and all of the other fun they have going on. It is a long day.
It really was.
Well, that will bring us into our first full day on the ship. This is Nassau. What did we have planned for Nassau?
So initially we had booked Atlantis, the Aqua Venture thing, but then we had switched it up to where we wanted to take just our daughter, our 16-year-old. We're going to take everybody to the Blue Lagoon and do the dolphin encounter, but we were only going to do it with her. The dolphin encounter is really, really expensive, but beyond that, we weren't sure. My 10 and 6-year-old can swim, but they're not super strong swimmers. What we had found out is you can't have some people do the dolphin encounter where the dolphins just come up and do a little kiss on the cheek and take a picture, and then have other people in your party doing the thing where you get to swim with them. It's kind of everybody has to choose one or the other. And we weren't sure the kids would really be comfortable swimming with the dolphins, or that we would be comfortable with them swimming with the dolphins. So we thought, well, we'll go, and then me and the little kids will hang out at the beach. And then my wife and my 16-year-old, we're going to do the dolphin encounter. But as soon as we cleared that little harbor where Port Canaveral is and got into open water, on embarkation day, the ship was really, really moving. It was probably the roughest water we've ever had on a cruise, and it was uncomfortable. I mean, we were at one point walking down the gangways with our arms out to steady, to bounce off the walls back and forth. It was rough. So on Tuesday, when we got into Nassau, it was still very, very rough. So they canceled anything that involved a boat out to where the turtle encounter, the swimming with the pigs, all that stuff had been canceled before we even got there. So we just said, all right, we're going to do it on our own. So when we got up and ate breakfast, we were dragging a little bit from the day on Monday and honestly the day on Sunday, because our flight was so early Sunday morning, that we slept in a little bit, and then we had breakfast on the ship. And then we thought, you know what? It's a ghost town down here. Everybody's kind of off the ship already. Why don't we go do the Aquamouse? So we went upstairs to the top deck and did Aquamouse 3 times with 0 weight. We just cycled through it 1, 2, 3. It was awesome. And then we went ahead and got off the ship, and we decided that we were going to we had asked some cast members. We ran into a cast member who was our head server on our March cruise, who was a head server again on this cruise just by chance. And we asked him, hey, where should we go? And he gave us a recommendation. And so we went out to that general vicinity, but the weather was getting a little sketchy with some rain. So the cab driver that we hired dropped us off. He said, well, you can go this way to that beach, or you can just go straight here and they'll help you. So we went over there and we went to Long Wharf, which is near Junkanoo Beach in Nassau. And it was interesting. Again, to keep it positive, I will say my kids loved it. They had the most amazing time playing in the water and being at the beach. As adults, I would say it was not an ideal experience because we were hounded pretty good by people trying to get us to come to their restaurant, eat their food, drink their beverages. And I think we ended up in the middle of some really weird turf war between 2 people who were really, really like claiming us as their customer, even though we weren't anybody's customer. It was odd, but I would just say maybe if you are averse to being haggled and sold, it might not be the right beach for you. I'm not sure we would do it again. But again, the good news is my kids they had the best day ever being at the beach. So they didn't care about anything that was happening behind them. So after lying to them for 3 months about going to Florida to spend a week at the beach, we finally were at a beach, even though it was not Cocoa Beach or Longboat Key or any of the pretty Florida beaches. But so they had a great day. And then we were done. We cab back very, very quickly, breezed through the straw market. My daughter found a dress that she really liked. And so she ended up getting the dress. And then we went back to the ship and got back on board a couple hours earlier than we needed to.
Yeah, for our listeners who have been to Nassau, this beach is the beach that when your ship is pulling into Nassau, it's right on the right-hand side there. A lot of times you will see people post pictures from their vacations with all of the ships in Nassau in the background. This is typically where those pictures are taken from as well. There is a public portion of that beach, and then there are also private sections from the hotels. Many of those hotels do offer day passes into their private beach sections as well.
Had we done that, the private beach day pass, I think we would have had a completely different experience. But we didn't. Again, we were kind of winging it a little bit because the thing that we had booked and then the thing that we had shifted to that we didn't actually get to do because of weather, we were sort of winging it a little bit. If we ever were to go to Nassau again and decide to get off the ship, I probably would want to do a private beach just for a little bit of a low pressure afternoon as opposed to all the vendors wanting us to buy their stuff.
Yeah, I love when we get to talk about going off the ship because there is so much to do in Nassau, but it does hurt a little bit to still hear the same Nassau experience over and over. So, Nassau is a beautiful place to look at from the balcony of your cruise ship.
Or Deck 11. The best view of Nassau is from Deck 11 on the Wish, I think. But, we were there to take our kids to the beach. And so we did. And they, again, if I brought my 10-year-old in here rather, and you talked to him for a minute, how was Nassau? He'd say, man, it was great. We loved it. And really, that's what matters for us on this adventure. So mission accomplished.
Awesome. Well, we head back towards the ship. What did we get up to before dinner?
This was the Mickey and Minnie's holiday party, or for anyone who's experienced, this was the holiday most earworm in the history of earworms is the theme song for this show. It was, honestly, it's like Goofy's having a moment, man. Like for all the Goofy fans, Goofy is having a moment on the Disney Wish. So He's the Adventure is essentially a Goofy show. And even though this is called the Mickey and Minnie Holiday Party, it's Goofy and Max, man. This whole thing centers around Goofy and Max. And it's a really, really cute show. It's a deck show. And it was, again, just the right amount of time. And then we were out of there going down to Arendelle. So we had dressed up for Arendelle. My daughter was dressed in a full on attire head to toe. The rest of us just kind of dressed vaguely similar to that theme. So we had gotten dressed. We went up and did that deck show rather. And then we headed down to dinner at Arendelle. And Arendelle is still Arendelle. It's very loud and very cramped. And the menu is probably not what a lot of people would call their preference, but it is something more than just, pardon the blasphemy here, but it's something other than just the same old truffle persets and, roasted loin of beef with twice baked potato. It's at least something different, but it was the one thing that I will tell you is my daughter was crushed because we were at a table that was nowhere near the stage. And so she could kind of see the show because we put her in a chair where she could see it. But when the characters start making the rounds like Oaken and then Anna and Kristoff, and they weren't really coming near our table. So my wife and I, for all the listeners, I'm so sorry. We were those parents for just a moment. But when Anna and Kristoff came around, they were the third characters to go by. And my daughter, wearing her Anna gown, was like, you know what, honey, just step out in the aisle and walk up there and try to wave at her or say hi, just try to catch her eye. And when she did that, my daughter saw her and Anna kind of like got down and waved to her. My daughter took off and like wrapped her in this big hug and stood there with her for a second. And both her and Kristoff were talking to my daughter. And it was one of those moments as a parent where you're like, man, I really hope that no other girls copy what my daughter is doing. But oh my God, I'm glad that this is working out. Like literally when my daughter took off, I look at my wife, I'm like, oh God, no, please be nice, please be nice, please be nice. Because what I didn't want is like the character attendant to see her coming and like try to block her or keep her from having this interaction, because that might have been it for her. Like she was already in tears from not being able to see anything, but got down on her level and hugged her and talked to her for a minute. And it was just my wife and I are in tears, and it was a whole thing. But that kind of redeemed the night. It was good getting, because that was really the only, other than the character greeting on Thursday, that's the only opportunity to meet Anna and Elsa is that dinner. So we got that. And that happened kind of surreptitiously, and it worked out, which was great.
Yeah, that can be a hard restaurant. You're really gambling with what kind of seating you're going to get there. I, for one, though, actually do like the menu, and I applaud its creativity, though I do recognize that it is a little more adventurous for those that may not enjoy that.
I don't mind it, but it was not my kids' favorite by a long stretch.
Did we get up to anything after Arendelle?
The kids went to Kids Club, and I think that was it. I think, this was election night, Lake. We were there on Tuesday, literally the day of the U.S. elections. So at that point, my wife and I have had this weird opportunity where on two of our previous sailings, something major was happening. On one, it was the NFC Championship game on our first ever cruise was the night of our embarkation day on the Fantasy way back in 2013 or 14. And at the time we lived in Seattle, and the Seahawks were playing in the NFC Championship, and they were playing the 49ers. So even though I'm not a Seahawks fan by any stretch, it was really cool that we were sitting there on a deck of a cruise ship watching the playoffs, the NFL playoffs on funnel vision, right? Because they had put it up there, and that was kind of cool. Another time, I don't remember what it was, but some other major thing. But so we went up onto Deck 11 just to see if they were going to start putting the election results on funnel vision, because that would have been the coolest photo ever, sitting there on a cruise ship with a frosty beverage watching U.S. election results from the middle of the ocean with a frosty beverage in your hand. They did not. Probably better that way, because the last thing in the world Disney would want is to have people thinking that they were going one direction or the other. But we did end up in our stateroom kind of flipping back and forth a little of that, and then turned it in a little early that night. We didn't do anything adult oriented at all that evening.
How did your kids enjoy the kids club?
So they loved it. They would have liked to have spent more time. My 16-year-old never went into Vibe. Like she never went in. But Oceaneer Club and Lab was a massive hit. One of the things that I skipped over on embarkation day is it took us 3 tries to get them registered because there were so many people, so many families that it was just, the lines were unbelievably long. So we actually ended up after the second try, we were in there during the open house and couldn't really get their wristbands or whatever. So we left and then came back later. I want to say it was maybe after the safety drill or whenever we finally came back down, there was nobody there. And we walked right up to the cast member and she gave them their wristband in like 10 minutes or whatever. And it was really easy. So they really loved the kids club. They loved the slide. There were moments where I was like, man, the grand hall is going to be nuts. Can we please just take the elevator down to deck 2? They're like, nope, we're standing in line. We're going down the slide. Like, all right, whatever. It's fine. You do you. But they enjoyed it a lot. My son, the 10-year-old, was a little more interested than I thought he would be in things that I didn't think he'd be interested in, and wasn't as interested in things that I thought he would love. He didn't spend a lot of time designing superhero costumes, and he didn't spend a lot of time doing the Imagineer R&D, like building a roller coaster thing. He did that a little bit, but I'm thinking pre-cruise, they're not going to be able to get him off that roller coaster simulator thing. He's very STEM oriented. He's incredibly intelligent and wants to do something with science when he gets older. So I'm thinking this is right up his alley. But really, he liked spending time playing the games with the counselors and building Legos, and he enjoyed it a lot. And my daughter was just happy to be there. She would have done whatever. So she had a great time.
Awesome. Love to hear it. Well, that sounds like that closes out our day 2, which brings us on to our next day, our Castaway Day. What did we have planned here?
Snorkeling. So we had snorkeling planned. And again, I felt really bad for all of the people who had parasailing and other things planned, but all that got canceled. So we got up in the morning, ate some breakfast, went onto the island, went straight to the snorkeling gear rental place, got our stuff. And I'm thinking we're just going to be right around the like ankle deep, because I'm thinking my kids think they know what snorkeling is, but they've never done it in anything other than a pool. I don't really think they understand what's happening here. So, but they loved it. They took to it immediately, and we had a great day snorkeling, and it was wonderful.
Great. Was Castaway all ready for Christmas as well? Did they have the decorations up there yet?
I didn't see it. They might have. I know they had Christmas music playing, like Christmas calypso type, beachy music, but there was no decorations up yet that I remember seeing. Someone who was on that sailing might correct me here, but I don't think they did actually. I don't think the Castaway stuff was up yet.
Okay. And what did your kids think of Castaway overall? It's a very different beach experience from just traveling to Cocoa, a little more curated and a little bit more of my preference for a beach for sure.
Ours too. Having grown up in Central Florida, the running joke is when tourists say, hey, where's a good beach? You send them to Cocoa. That's so all the tourists end up at Cocoa. And then we can go to the other beaches that are a lot nicer. So I really am a fan of the St. Pete area beaches, Longboat Key, St. John's Pass, all that stuff that's over in that side. Castaway to me is one of my top 3 or 4 beaches that I would live there if that was an option. I love it. The kids loved it. My son specifically was really upset when it was time to leave. He loved it a lot. The kids had a great time. They saw a few of their friends that they had made at the kids club, and my daughter specifically got to splash around and play in the water with her. And it was just an all-around wonderful day. Great weather. The food at Cookies is still much improved over the first time we were there. As I mentioned when we talked back in about the one in March, it was just I can't think of anything that would have made the day better. To be honest, it was relatively perfect.
Great. We love a perfect day at Castaway.
Yes, we do.
Well, heading back onto the ship, what did we have planned for the evening?
For the evening, the only thing really we had planned that night was dinner. We did the show. Actually, no, I'm so sorry. The kids decided they didn't want to do Little Mermaid. They wanted to do the kids club instead. So we took them to the kids club and they did that instead of the show.
Did you and your wife get up to anything while they did that?
We did a lot of stuff on the ship that we wanted to do that we didn't want to necessarily take the kids along to, but nothing adult oriented. In other words, like we went back in the gift shop, briefly. We poked our head into guest relations to take care of something that we needed to handle. Yeah, that was basically it. And then we started getting ready for pirate night because we kind of went all out on pirate night. My wife and I had full pirate costumes and the kids had full pirate costumes. So they played for a couple hours while we got our stuff together and got ready. And then we got them out of the kids club and got them all dressed up and ready to go too, and had full pirate regalia on. It was wonderful. It was tacky, and particularly my costume, I looked like an extra from one of the Johnny Depp movies, and it just was it was wonderful and horrible all at once, but it was a good time.
Well, I hope you send me a photo to post with the show notes for that. So you are familiar with the Pirate Parlay Party, my preference to the different pirate shows that you can see on board Disney Cruise Line. What did your kids think of it?
Loved it. We had a great location. We were all the way on the very top deck. I lose track if that's 12 or 13, but it wasn't the main deck where the stage is. It was one deck above it, kind of diagonally looking down. We were on port side, which is, for those unfamiliar with ship terminology, that's the left side as you're facing the front of the ship. And so we were looking down at the stage, and the fireworks went off directly behind the stage. So we're basically looking at it right in front of us. The show was amazing. The band is great, man. They're really, really good. This version of Red probably wasn't quite as mind-blowing as the one was in March. She's just not the same vocalist, but at the party, it's the show itself, the music was still awesome. And I remember I looked at my wife, I was like, where in the world are these musicians all week? Like, because they're out here just shredding this rock and roll show. Like, is this all they like? They're doing other things during the week, but they were awesome. They was great, and the kids loved it. They were out there rocking out, and then the fireworks, they loved that, obviously, because what kid doesn't like bright things exploding in the sky over a cruise ship in the water?
I love bright things exploding in the sky.
I do too. I'm all about it, man. But they were over the moon. They loved it. I will say, I would recommend people don't be in a hurry to do anything after the party. If you have anything to do immediately after, leave the pirate party early, especially on a Very Merry anything. If your cruise ship is full, you're not getting anywhere quickly after the pirate party. The elevator bank up there, it was absolutely just crushed full of people, and it took us quite a while to get out of there. So I think I originally had like a whiskey tasting or something that was after. I don't remember what it was. It was rum tasting, I think, but I would not have made it. I absolutely wouldn't have made it to that on time because of how crazy it is getting out of there. But that was it for, actually, I want to say the kids went back to their kids club after the pirate party for about an hour, but that was the last meaningful thing on Castaway night.
All right. Well, that brings us into our final day on board the ship, and you have the best itinerary for the 4-night sailings where you get to end with the day at sea, which I think is way better than starting with the day at sea. And this also would be the day where I believe most of your holiday activities would be kind of stacked up for you.
Yeah, the number one thing that we had not done yet that we had planned for was photos with Santa in the grand hall in front of the tree. So if you've been on the Wish, the right when you walk on the ship, the Christmas tree will be immediately to your left. So if you have an aerial view of the grand hall, and you're standing on their stage, where the Cinderella statue is on the right, and then 1923 is in front of you, the Christmas tree's on the left. So they bring one of those beautiful red couch-looking seats and put it directly in front of the tree, and then put Santa directly in the middle of it. And then you can come in and meet with Santa and take pictures with him. A lot of people did it in their pajamas, which was our original plan. But then we elected that we're going to do like nice matching outfits, and we packed the outfits and took them. But on the day, we're like, you know what, we're not feeling it. So we decided not to do that. We did meet with Minnie in her Christmas outfit, and that was awesome. And we also my daughter did Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique that morning. Actually, very important to know, that morning we did Mickey Churro waffles. That's the highlight of Marceline Market for the entire sailing, is we did Mickey Churro waffles for breakfast. Then we got her up and got her in for the Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique appointment, and then she did the Royal Gathering. While she did that, we went to Enchanted Sword and got lattes while my wife took pictures, and then stood there and watched them transform her. Her cast member was amazing. He was just the sweetest, kindest, most patient, because she kept changing. Well, I want this. No, I want that. And finally we had to tell her, look, you got to choose. Like, you're going to have a bun on top of your head, or you're going to have a ponytail wrapped in pink hair. You can't have both. So, but he was like, no, it's okay. The princess gets to choose. And was incredibly indulgent and patient with her, which we appreciated. So she looked like a princess for the rest of the day. And so we did those two things stacked up, and then we did the mini photo pretty much immediately after that. Then there was lots of Christmas overlays, as I would call it, just in park parlance, of things that already happened. Like instead of there being music trivia, it was holiday music trivia. Instead of it being craft time in the bayou, it was we're going to make a holiday craft in the bayou. Everything was kind of like sort of just rebranded to be holiday themed. So there was lots of stuff to do. We ended up doing a trivia that was not holiday themed. It was Disney Music Trivia Live, where the piano player on the stage plays music and they ask you, name the song, and then they ask you a trivia question about it. Some of it was easy, where they would play like Go the Distance and say what movie is that from, and then the question would be like, who sings the song? And then that's easy if you've seen the movie. But then some of it, man, was like they played the music from Fantasmic, which I got, but then they're like, now name the year that song debuted in the park. And you're getting really like Disney nerd to the 10th degree if you're getting that. I see your smoke coming out of your ears. You gonna take a stab at that one, Lake?
I got to think about that one pretty hard.
So we did well. I got the possible 40 points. I got 35, but then there was another group that got 36. I claim shenanigans. I'm telling you, they didn't actually get 36. They're liars. But they won under protest from me. Silent protest to myself. So we did that. We went to Star Wars Hyperspace Lounge and had some cool space cocktails and really kind of crammed the day full of stuff we hadn't done yet, which I think is kind of the reflex for everybody on their last day of a cruise.
Did you have a show that night?
Yeah, that was Aladdin night.
Did you guys go and see it?
We did, and it was great. We had technical difficulties during it on our sailing in March. They had to shut the show down twice, and after the second shutdown, we're like, okay, we've seen the movie. So we ended up leaving it, but this time we went all the way through it, and it was incredible. That's the night that the cruise director comes out and, says, hey, let's round of applause for this person, that person, this person, that person. So that show goes a little bit longer because the cruise director puts all the debarkation information and make sure you do the survey and, all his, like, that's the last time you see him. That was the last thing we did there before we headed up to our dinner at 1923.
And what did everyone think of what I would say is the best rotational dining dinner in the Disney fleet?
It is, in fact, the best. I agree with you 100%. My wife and I loved it. The kids liked it, but didn't care about it as much as we did because, it's a steakhouse, essentially. And they liked it a lot, but they just wanted to get back down to Kids Club for the last time. So they kind of blew through that one as quickly as they could. And then we spent the last little bit enjoying things like the gingerbread house, which I joked before we started recording. It's more like a gingerbread condominium, because they stack all these gingerbread houses up on this podium as opposed to it being one big house. It was odd, not what I would think was necessarily up to the standard of certainly not the Grand Floridian or any of the other resorts that put up their gingerbread houses, but it is something that makes the whole corner of the Grand Hall smell like gingerbread, and it was very pretty. Actually, when we disembarked, some contractors had come on and were putting poinsettias and stuff all around it to finish it up because apparently it wasn't finished before we set sail. But we took pictures all over the place and kind of last gasp of the Christmas cruise and all the Christmas stuff we hadn't really fit in yet.
We wake up the next day. Sadly, it is disembarkation. How was the process getting off the ship, and how did we get home?
Seamless getting off the ship, and that's where the seamless ended, unfortunately. Again, we're from the Dallas area, so we got off the ship, grabbed our stuff, got on a lift, and then went to the airport to fly home, only to find out that all of the flights to anywhere in Dallas or anywhere in Texas had been canceled for that day. Not only had they been canceled for that day, but they filled up Saturday. We weren't able to get out till Sunday. So we got two extra days in Orlando, unscheduled days. So after all that, we ended up renting a car, finding an Airbnb, kind of just had to find somewhere to go. Found an Airbnb in the area, and then the same cast member friend that we had seen Cake Bake Shop, we went and hung out with her at Hollywood Studios on Friday and had a lot of fun there. And Saturday, we just hung out at the pool at the Airbnb and relaxed and did a lot of laundry and repacked all the bags so we wouldn't have all the dirty clothes when we got here, and made another homage to genuflect at the majesty of Publix. And that was about it. That was really the last functional, like going to Publix was really kind of the last milestone on the trip. as it should be for Florida boy who's now living abroad in the great desolate land of Texas. Our flight out on Sunday was completely eventless. We got there on time, checked our stuff in, and then flew home, and everything was great. I would recommend to have a contingency plan for what happens if, because I'm hearing more and more lately that like large chunks of flights are being canceled. So have a plan to what you're going to do if that happens.
I have definitely never flown into or out of Dallas where I have not had an issue. I'm not going to lie. And this is like talking about 3 or 4 issues now.
Yeah, it was compounded because it was Dallas, Houston, Austin, and San Antonio. Because the storm that was causing the issue was heading right for Houston. So everybody coming to Texas was being rebooked. So it was pretty chaotic, but we called the airline. My wife had booked those flights on points. She called the airline, got rebooked. We got a car and got out of there before it got too crazy.
Well, I'm glad you were able to get it figured out and get a little bit of park time in, extend the vacation a little bit, though sometimes when it's unplanned, you're just ready to get back.
Yeah, by Sunday, we very much were ready to get back, but it worked out well.
Well, we're going to keep the fun of cruising going for just a little bit here. I have a couple more questions. First off, let's talk a little bit more about the Very Merrytime Sailing. First Very Merrytime. I have never been on a Very Merrytime. My only theme sailing has been a Marvel Day at Sea. Overall, what were your thoughts of the Very Merrytime and the activities available? And would you be drawn towards booking a Very Merrytime specifically again?
I don't know that I would do it on a Wish or Treasure, only because there are so many people. Man, it was overwhelming, honestly. One of our kids gets a little nervous in crowds, or I guess more overwhelmed than nervous, just mostly with sound. She's some sensory stuff. And there were moments where she was pretty overwhelmed. Had we not been there to kind of care for her, I think she probably would have been really, really overwhelmed. But from what I understand, on the smaller, like on the Magic and Wonder, that's not quite an issue because obviously there's way less people, but then things are kind of spread out more. But this was, in addition to being a lot of people, it was event to event to event to event to where it really just fills up all of your spare time. Any block of time you would have had is taken up by a deck party, tree lighting, some kind of event where really, honestly, it just felt very overwhelming how much stuff that there was to do. I really enjoyed the theming and the holiday. All the events I thought were wonderful, and we really enjoyed the actual cruise experience. But I'm not sure that I would want to do one again that was not maybe a little less attended. So maybe like in the middle, like a midweek cruise on the Dream or something that departs on a Tuesday or Wednesday when the kids are still in school, that's going to have fewer people. But this was a lot of people for us. It was a little much, but we really, really, really enjoyed what holiday events we did have. As far as doing it again, yeah, I think we probably would, but maybe on a different ship.
Did you have any other notable cast interactions that you wanted to highlight?
This is the first time we've ever been on the same ship this close together. We were on the Wonder twice, almost exactly a year apart. And you see people you kind of remember, but this was the same ship within a 6-month period. So there were people who like saw us and recognized us before we even realized who they were. Our server from March saw us in Marceline Market one morning. It was like, "Oh, hello, Mr. Virgil." Like he recognized us. Like, oh, and my wife had to be like, "Oh, that's Adi. He's our." I was like, "Oh, hello." Like it took a minute to remember who he was, but he remembered us immediately. And there were a few others that just it was so soon that it felt like kind of just picking up where we left off. But overall, in addition to Nico, our head server in the dining room, Linval from Jamaica, is everything you think of in a Disney cast member. Friendly, engaging. He anticipates need. He's a head server. Like you don't see him very often, but he was 3 steps ahead of us. Anytime something would possibly come up, like the seating thing, when we were way out in the corner, when he came around the corner, when he saw us, before he even made eye contact with us, was, "Hey, was she able, can she see okay?" Like, just that's how he approached us in Arendelle that night. And I think he's fantastic. And I hope he stays with the company for a long time, because losing him would be a huge loss. He's incredible. And then both the guys in Hooks are awesome as well.
Awesome. Well, what is next for you and your family?
So we are actually already booked on a Southern Caribbean on the Magic out of San Juan next year. And after just saying, all that I said about a themed cruise, this is a Halloween on the High Seas cruise that disembarks the morning of Halloween morning. So it'll be another themed cruise for us next, only it'll be on the Magic. And it'll be a 7-night instead of a 4-night out of San Juan. So, and we're going to visit family. I have a lot of family that's from Puerto Rico, so we'll get to visit them while we're down there.
Awesome. What an exciting and interesting itinerary to book, and then to be able to have a little bit more time to experience the Halloween on the high seas on the ship as well is pretty cool. And I got a soft spot in my heart for the Magic. I love that ship.
Never been on the Magic, but that's how I feel about the Wonder. Our first cruise was on the Fantasy, but then our next 3 was Wonder, Wonder, Wonder. I personally have a huge soft spot in my heart for the Wonder for the same reason. I love the Wonder. It's probably still, if I could, we do the hypothetical, if you could go to any destination in the world, where would it be? And I would love to do like a European thing, but I would love to do it on the Wonder. I know they don't send the Magic class ships over there anymore, but that would be awesome. I would love to take the Wonder for a week or 2 through Greek Isles and Europe, and that would be awesome.
Wonder is a fantastic ship, though. It has been several years since I have been on her. Well, Virgil, thank you so much again for coming on and sharing you and your family's experience on the Wish.
My pleasure, Lake. It has been awesome getting to chat with you again. I really appreciate you having me on and letting me talk about the trip with our kids.
Absolutely. And we hope you'll reach back out when you get back from your sailing on the Magic so we can talk a little bit about one of my favorite ships in the fleet.
Wonderful. Absolutely. I'd love to.
Well, that is going to wrap up the show. Thank you all so much for listening, and we'll see you next time on the DCL Podcast. Bye, guys. Well, it's going to wrap up the show. Once again, we want to thank Virgil for coming on and sharing his family's experience on the Disney Wish. If you're enjoying the show, we greatly appreciate you leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. We'd also like to thank our Patreons who help make the show happen each and every week for us. You too can help support the show by visiting patreon.com/DCL Podcast. Whether you're boarding a cruise, enjoying a trip to the parks, or adventuring outside of Disney, on behalf of myself, Christy, and Steve, we want to wish you smooth sailing and safe travels. And we'll see you next time on the DCL Podcast.
The DCL Podcast is not affiliated with the Disney Cruise Line, Walt Disney Company, Adventures by Disney, or Run Disney. All of the opinions expressed on our shows are those of the hosts and the guests who appear on the show. If you have any questions about any of these products, please contact the Walt Disney Company.